welcome everyone. I'm Nicole and I'm a wellness astrologer. I'm so excited to be teaching you today and also completely honored to be a part of the Stormie Grace YouTube Academy, teaching alongside the other astrologers. My lesson today is on interpreting your birth chart for your emotional well-being. At this point, you should have learned about the zodiac signs, planets, the meanings, the aspects, and all I will be doing is teaching you a spin-off of things that you already know. I learn something new every single day in astrology, and so my lesson is to inspire and encourage you to continue to learn new ways in astrology. And what the lesson will be teaching you is how I have redefined the houses for you to interpret your birth chart for your emotional well-being. So let's get right into it. Here is an overview of what we will be learning today. Some of the things will be familiar and you will already know, and others may be new to you. I will take you through the houses as I have redefined them, and they are starting right here all the way down. I have done my best to make it simple and easy to understand my interpretation. You may notice as the lesson goes on that some planets and houses hold the same traditional meanings, while others will remain closely similar. So try to find what you know and use it to gain further knowledge in this lesson. A little bit more about myself. I am a wellness astrologer, a teacher, a children's author, and a certified emotion code practitioner. I have a bachelor's in both education and behavioral science, and they both go hand in hand, as you will see here. In astrology talk, I am a Sagittarius sun, so that's why I love teaching and education. I'm a Scorpio moon and rising. I have a Scorpio 12th house stellium, and I have 9 birth chart placements in water. That's a lot of emotions and feelings. And on top of that, my Jupiter and Mars are in Pisces, right? The sign of healing and compassion. And so we're thinking abundant energy in those areas in the house of what I refer to as emotional comforts. So what I do in astrology is I help others discover the cosmic emotional design so they can either work with their makeup, their design within their chart, or they can recreate. And we all have free will to change our course or our path, or they can just simply let go of their emotional patterns. And I say all of that just to say that I absolutely love working with the emotions and healing and teaching. Okay, so here are some keywords that I have put up for the zodiac signs. I understand that you have already gone over this in a previous lesson, but I'm bringing it up again because it will help you throughout my lesson also. So Aries, some of the keywords are leadership and initiative, being that it is the first sign of the zodiac, bringing in lots of energy. Taurus is stability and patience. Gemini is communication and duality. Cancer is nurturing, memories, and also family. Leo is playful and loyal. Virgo represents organization and being helpful. Libra is harmony and balance. Scorpio represents mystery and passion and power. Sagittarius is about adventure, travel, education, philosophy. You can tell how I felt that those two a little bit more. Capricorn is ambitious and hardworking. Aquarius is about individuality and community, and Pisces is dreams, spirituality, and illusion. Now, the planets' meanings as I define them. These are the only planets that I work with as I read the birth chart. I have noticed that these are the most effective when it comes to our emotional well-being. I will pull the other planets into the chart if they are aspecting any of these planets. So we'll start with the sun, and that represents self and ego. That is the same as the traditional meaning. The moon is our emotions and intuition. Mercury is our mind still, as well as how we may be expressing our feelings through communication, verbal outlets, or inner communication, or inner voice. Venus represents self-love. Mars is our assertiveness, our anger and energy. And Jupiter here is still representing abundance and growth, but it's going to be more about mental growth. And then once we achieve that mental growth, we have mental wisdom. I work with Chiron, and Chiron is a comet. Chiron in a birth chart tells you directly where your wound is, which simply is saying, hey, you need to work on that and heal. So these planets up here are pointing out, and you kind of have to solve what's going on there and piece it together. Whereas Chiron is saying, hey, you are hurt here. Let's do some healing. It's very direct. And just an overview of aspects, some that I have put here because I will be bringing them up throughout the lesson. So a review for you. A conjunction is when planets are next to each other and they sort of blend and become one in togetherness, and they may often lose themselves within each other. A square causes conflict, challenges, as well as stress is what I find in an emotional chart or a well-being chart. An opposition can cause imbalance or division. And if we look here, I often think of it as a tug of war. So one pulling to either side. And when I read a chart, for me, it's trying to find the balance between those. We have trine, which is a harmonious and supporting aspect. And here's just a simple chart reading formula. Now you take the planet's meaning, the theme. So say moon is emotions and intuition. You're going to look at the house and what that means. And then you're going to add the sign meaning. And then last, you'll take a look and see if there are any aspects to that planet. And that is how you get your interpretation. Very basic. Now, we know that astrology is way more complex than that. But if we break it down to that, this simple formula, it may make things a little bit easier for you. Okay, the very first house that I have redefined is what I call the first house of emotional self-awareness. Right away, you should have found that similarity between the first house being traditionally the house of self and identity. So there's really nothing different here other than it is about emotions. So emotional self-awareness, what is that? It is knowing how and why you are having a feeling. That is what it is. Let's take a look at the planets through this house. If you have Sun in the first house, you have a strong hold on your emotions. Moon in the first house, you are conscious of our feelings. Mercury in the first house, you are mentally aware of your emotional self-awareness. Venus here is saying your self-love influences your emotional self-awareness. And Mars is saying you impulsively act and then become self-aware. So you're going to react and maybe find out that there's consequences to your actions, and then take a moment and self-reflect and be like, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done that differently. So Mars is, there is time for reflection, but it usually comes after you've already reacted. Jupiter in the first house is your emotional self-awareness is an area of growth, and therefore can become an area of wisdom for you. Now, remember I said Chiron is very direct. So here it is saying your emotional self-awareness needs to be healed. Now going back up here to the moon. So moon is also saying that you identify with your emotions within your soul, and therefore it is felt outside of your body, right? Without, as within, so without. It is ultimately saying that you wear your heart on your sleeve when you have moon in the first house. Very sensitive here. And with Venus, you may have an abundance of self-love, and this could benefit your self-awareness. Now let's take a look if we have an aspect in the first house. Remember that Mars in the first house was impulsive with reacting emotionally. Mars in the first house squaring Pluto in the 9th house. When you learn to control and become aware of your impulsive aggression, you will transform your emotional wisdom. With both the energy from Mars and the power from Pluto, you will push yourself too hard and cause a burnout. So now if we add a sign ruler to these, it would tell us how it would be done. So say if we have Cancer, it would be nurturing, Virgo, it would be organized. If we use the Sagittarius here, the 9th house, and Aries for the first house, we could read this as when you take initiative or leadership, because those are key words from Aries. When you take initiative or leadership, if we use Aries for the first house, your awareness of your impulsive aggression will be transformed through exploring, adding a Sagittarius keyword, your emotional wisdom. So what I'm doing here is looking at what the aspect has caused, but finding what the lesson for your emotional well-being is. Yes, it's causing conflict because you are aggressive and there's a power struggle with that. But when you transform is how you will become emotionally wise from that and less aggressive, so to say. Planets in the 2nd house. The 2nd house is the house of self-worth, and you can find it similar to traditionally, it is the house of material objects, money, and values. So for thinking self-worth, self-value, that is a common ground that you can find here. Sun in the 2nd house is having a strong sense of self-worth. Moon in the 2nd house, your emotions influence your self-worth. Mercury, Your mind has a strong hold over your self-worth. Venus, your self-worth and self-value flourishes. Now, this is her home. This is her house, so she flourishes here and less harshly aspected, right? With a square or an opposition. Mars in the second house, your assertiveness or actions are based on your self-worth. Now, if you value yourself highly and you would have to look at where your Venus is at, then you're probably going to be doing more. If you have low self-value, then it would be low. Jupiter here, your self-worth expands as you gain mental wisdom. So an area of growth for you would be in self-worth as well, is another way to look at that. Chiron, remember I said, is direct. You need to heal your self-worth, your self-value, that you are important. Let's take a look at an aspect. Sun in the second house conjunct Saturn in the second house. And as you recall, I did say I use the other planets if they are forming an aspect with the main planets that I use. Sun conjunct Saturn says you are hard on yourself and your strong sense of self-worth will come from overcoming the challenges and obstacles in your life. So the lessons that you are learning from Saturn here will help you build up your self-worth, self-value. So you may be hard on yourself, but understand that those challenges are for a reason, because you're going to come out stronger and have high value for yourself. The next house is the house where I call mental clarity or mental peace, as well as our emotional expression. If you have Sun in the third house, you have the ability to keep a peaceful mind or express your emotion. Moon in the third house, your emotions influence your mental clarity. So feeling high, feeling low, your mind's probably going to be more foggy if you're feeling low, right? You're not going to be able to use your words or express yourself the way that you would like to. And then the complete opposite if you are feeling happy. Mercury here in the third house, you are mentally in tune with peace of mind and emotional expression. Venus in the third house. Your sense of self-love influences your mental peace and emotional expression. Mars in the third house. Your impulses and aggression are acted according to your mental clarity. So mind is clear, mind is peaceful, then probably less assertive, less aggression, as well as maybe verbal outbursts. And then the opposite if mind is clear. So I may have said that backwards, but if your mind is not clear, then you'd have more aggression. Jupiter in the third house, you have an abundant mental capacity to maintain mental clarity. So you are wise emotionally on how to maintain mental peace. You have the knowledge to do so, or it would be an area of growth which you would become wise in. Chiron, your mental clarity and emotional expression are an area that you need to heal. Let's take a look at an aspect. Mars in the third house squares Venus in the 11th house. Would say you are passionate with strong desires. You put a lot of work into feeling at peace mentally, but it ultimately depends on whether or not you feel accepted amongst a group. So let's take a look here. Venus is feeling valued and loved, right? And if we look at self-love, this person relies highly on their community or being a part of a group in order to feel love for themselves. And so that is reflecting down here as well. If you're not feeling valued in a group, then it's affecting your mental clarity. And therefore, there may be a lot of overactiveness going into how you can maintain that. If it's equal here, if you are feeling love, then there's probably less action needing to go finding peace of thought or how to express yourself. Okay, just bringing some of my teacher background into here. Let's take a moment to see what you remember. If you're taking notes, you can copy this or just draw a line. If you are not, then maybe you can mentally do it. We have Jupiter, square Venus, first house self-worth, and third house on the left side. And what you will be doing is drawing a line to the one that matches. Okay, I'm going to play this video. It's about 30 seconds. Once it is ended, I will be showing the results. All right, let's see what you know. Okay, Jupiter, as I define, is the planet of mental growth or mental wisdom. A square aspect creates conflict and challenge. And then Venus, as I define, is where we find our self-love. First house is the house of emotional self-awareness. And then self-worth is the second house. And the third house is our mental clarity. So no pressure. It's just to kind of take a moment of reflection to see where you are at. Moving on to our fourth house. The fourth house is where I find the emotional comfort within my client's chart. Now, something that you may have found common ground already is the fourth house, the house of nurturing and comfort and family. So that is how I have redefined it amongst that similarity. Sun in the fourth house, you provide your own emotional comforts. Moon, you are sensitive and need your own emotional comforts. So Moon in the fourth house is at home. She's going to be extra sensitive and naturally nurturing. She may be able to provide comfort for others, but the lesson here is to also provide that emotional comfort for yourself, okay? Mercury in the fourth house. You think better when you are emotionally comforted, whether that be it comes from yourself or somebody else, you just are going to think better or express yourself better. Venus in the fourth house. You are happy when you are experiencing emotional comfort. You love yourself more when you are emotionally comforted. Mars in the fourth house, you are able to do more when you are emotionally comforted. And in that, saying that you are going to be less aggressive or assertive if you are emotionally supported by yourself or others. Jupiter in the fourth house. Your mental growth comes from how you are emotionally comforted. This could be, especially it being traditionally the house of home, it could be from a past experience, how you grew up, and it will be where you become wise because of what you have had to go through emotionally. Chiron, very direct. your self-healing is in emotional comfort. Let's take a look at an aspect. Mars in the 4th house conjunct Jupiter in the 4th house. You energetically work toward understanding your emotional comfort, and it will become the biggest area you become emotionally wise. Now, I haven't added the zodiac signs, but this is actually a placement from my own chart. So I'm going to say that if I say this is in Pisces, you guys can see it's literally what I do and everything that I teach and who I am and the work that I love. I put a lot of work into understanding who I was emotionally so that I could help others find their emotional comfort. But before I had to do that, I had to understand my own. And because mine is in Pisces, I'm doing it in a healing way. I hope that that makes sense. So you can add a zodiac sign. It would just be, how do you do it? And how I do it would be in the Pisces way, through healing. Now, if it was Aries, it would say that you would do it in a leadership way, taking initiative. The 5th house is the house I call emotional power or strengths. Sun in the 5th house, you are proud of your emotional strength. Moon in the 5th house, your trust of intuition and emotions is a strength that you have. So trusting your intuition is a strength that you carry out for yourself or for others. Again, if it is not harshly aspected. Mercury in the 5th house, your mental power adds strength to your emotions. Venus, your self-love is an emotional power and emotional strength. It's a good quality that you have for yourself. Mars, your actions are carried out due to your emotions is a strength. Jupiter, your emotional growth is a strength. So how you are going to grow emotionally in understanding who you are and just accumulating all of the things so far, even the emotional self-awareness, that's going to be an area of growth for you. And it's a power and a strength that you can use throughout your chart. Chiron, your area of self-healing is discovering your emotional powers. Jupiter in the 5th house opposing Pluto in the 11th house. How you transform within a community will give you tremendous emotional wisdom and become a strength. So we talked about Jupiter being a strength of an area of emotional growth. It's an opposition, and we're trying to find balance. So in order to find that balance, you're going to have to transform to step into your power, and you may find that through a community. So they're working hand in hand here. Planets in the 6th house. It is that house I call overanalyzing. And if we think that it is ruled by Virgo, that is how we can find that similarity from your previous lessons. Sun in the 6th house, you are aware of when you are overthinking. Moon, your emotions impact the way you analyze. Mercury is the ruler of the 6th house, right? Very into your thoughts, very into your head. So you are most likely to be over analytical. Venus here, you overanalyze your love of self. So this is where you may question, do I love myself enough? Am I doing it right? If you're working on self-love, then you're overthinking. If you're doing self-care and self-love and all these habits and rituals, are you doing that right? Are you providing yourself enough love? So just take a breather. You are enough. You are good enough. Mars in the 6th house. You have impulsive tendencies to carry out the same actions until they feel right. So doing it over and over again. Almost a sense of perfectionism. Jupiter in the 6th house, you have the wisdom of when to use an adequate amount of analysis. And then ultimately, if you do not feel like you do, then this would be an area of growth in which you could learn and become wise in. Chiron, your self-healing will be in understanding moderate analysis. Let's take a look at an aspect. Mars in the 6th house conjunct Uranus in the 7th house. Now remember, a conjunction is a blend or togetherness. You carry out the same action over and over again that results to unexpected turns in your relationships, which results in insecurities and codependency. You may also be high-strung, which can lead to difficulty in handling stress and strain your nervous system. So remember I said that Mars in the 6th house is doing things over and over again because we're thinking actions and analysis here. But Uranus is the planet of unexpected things and changes. And so we're bringing in the 7th house of relationships, but where you'll find out I call codependency. So that is the combination here. Doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. Here the lesson would be to change the pattern. And then maybe you'll get a different result. All right, just bringing in a brain break, a moment to kind of just breathe. And it's another method that we use in the classroom. So far, what we have taken in may be overwhelming to some, and then if not, if you are all good, just take this moment to take a drink of water, or you can breathe in through your nose for 2 seconds and hold it. And breathe out for 4 seconds. If you want to repeat this 3 times. Or another thing I have added here are some affirmations you can repeat to yourself 3 times as we take a moment to pause. I am relaxed and confident during this lesson. I am capable of remembering the information in this lesson. I retain the information in this lesson with ease. Okay, this moment of pause and reflection is because when we are relaxed, we perform and do our best. Which brings us to our next slide. Show what you know. Fill in the blank. So here's our word bank up here. Assertiveness, anger, energy, and then we have overanalyzing, happy. Mars is the planet of, and you'll fill in the blank with one of these. Venus in the 4th house means that you are when experiencing emotional comfort. The 6th house is the house of, and I'm going to play this video when it is over. That is when I will show you the answers. Okay, let's see what you know. Mars is the planet of assertiveness, anger, energy. Venus in the 4th house means that you are happy when experiencing emotional comfort. The 6th house is the house of overanalyzing. Okay, let's move on to the next houses. The 7th house is the house that I call codependency. Now, traditionally, we're thinking relationships, harmony and balance, as it is ruled by Libra. For emotional well-being, it is often where I can find if someone is codependent or not. When the sun is here, it is saying that you are independent. Moon in the 7th house, you are immensely in tune with your partner's emotions. Mercury, your mental energy goes into your relationships. Venus, your self-love is mirrored by how a partner loves you. If you are in a harmonious relationship, then your self-love will be balanced. If you are in a toxic relationship, then you will most likely not value yourself. Either way here, there is a codependence tendency, and the lesson to pull from this type of chart would be to work on self-love, right? How somebody feels about you shouldn't reflect on how you feel about yourself. Mars in the 7th house, you are overly assertive in relationships. You are the one putting a lot of energy there. Jupiter in the 7th house, your relationships benefit from your abundant knowledge on codependency. And then Chiron would be an area that you are wounded as being codependent on others. So it would be an area you need to heal. Let's take a look at an aspect here. If we have Sun in the 7th house opposing Moon in the 1st house. Now this person, remember, Moon in the 1st house is wearing their heart on their sleeve, very sensitive. And in the 7th house, calling for independence within a relationship. It's an opposition, so we're looking for balance. You have conflict between your will and emotions. You have emotional highs and lows. So your independence within a relationship depends on how you are feeling at the time. And you may even find a blend on the partner's emotions affecting your independence here. So if you're feeling good about yourself, most likely that you're looking and feeling that you need to be independent. If you're having a bad day, then you're probably leaning on your partner. And as I said, I feel as if that this type of person would also pull in their partner's emotions as well, somewhere in there that could kind of throw off the independency. So do you see how the sun, if we go back here, says by itself, not aspected, you are independent. But when we look at an aspect like this, opposition, it changes it. Planets in the 8th house. This is the exact same way as what you have learned the 8th house to be. It is traumas and shadow work. Sun in the 8th house, your traumas give you a strong sense of self. Moon here, you heal emotionally, connecting to your emotional shadows. Mercury, you have deep mental insight into your shadows or traumas. Venus in the 8th house, your self-love transforms through shadow work or facing your traumas. Mars in the 8th house, your aggression comes from your emotional traumas and shadows. The interesting thing about Mars, it could also provide motivation. Your traumas and shadows can provide motivation to do things, either the same or different, whatever you want to take the lesson from in this lifetime. Jupiter in the 8th house is your emotional growth comes from the shadows or traumas you have faced. And then Chiron would be you are wounded with your traumas and shadows and how you need to heal them. Let's take a look at an aspect. Jupiter in the 8th house conjuncting Uranus, also in the 8th house. You will have unexpected or unusual traumatic events in your life that will cause you to grow emotionally and in turn becoming emotionally wise, mentally wise about that. Moving on to the 9th house is the house of emotional wisdom. And I want to clarify the difference between the 5th house, the house of power, and the 9th house, the house of wisdoms in my terms here. Powers or strengths are something that you have, whereas the wisdom is knowing how to use those powers or strengths. So they do work hand in hand. Sun in the 9th house, you like to explore ways to improve your emotional wisdom. Moon, you trust your emotional wisdom. Mercury, you express your thoughts about your emotional wisdom. Venus, your exploration of self-love gives you emotional wisdom. Mars, you are active with your emotional wisdom. So the knowledge that you know about emotions, you are active. Maybe this type of person might be a protester and a supporter of people's rights or something like that. Jupiter, you are emotionally wise, or it's an area of growth. Chiron, your self-healing is in finding your emotional wisdom. An aspect, Venus in the 9th house conjunct Mercury in the 10th house. You have a calm and quiet temperament. So these two are blending together. Venus is love and Mercury is mind, and just bringing that calm and peacefulness to the mind. When you let go of mental, emotional repression, you will be wise in the area of self-love. Now, this one will pull into the next house because the 10th house rules repressed or suppressed emotions. So here, this person is actually mentally pushing down their feelings. But when they learn that that is separate than how they love or feel about themselves, they're kind of blending here and they're losing themselves. Then they will be more wiser with how they are connected to their emotions. Okay, just a little show what you know. Which of the following best describes Sun in the 7th house of codependency? A, your self-love mirrors your relationships. B, you require independence within your relationships. See, you have strong emotions. I'm going to set our video timer. When it is over, I'll show you the results. Okay, answer reveal. The answer is B. Which of the following best describes Sun in the 7th house of codependency? You require independence within your relationships. Planets in the 10th house. The 10th house is repressed or suppressed emotions. So what do those mean? Repressed here is defined as an unconscious action of pushing your feelings down. So you've done this so much that it becomes naturally, it's automatic. You might not even know that you were doing it. That's repression. Suppressed is consciously pushing your feelings down. You are completely aware that you are doing it. It comes to surface and you knowingly block a feeling or emotion. You'll notice that some of the planets cause repression and some cause suppression. Sun in the 10th house, you are too proud to express emotions. Moon, you feel disassociated from your emotions. Mercury, you mentally push back any thoughts of expressing emotions. Venus, your self-love is deficient due to not being in tune with your emotions. Mars, in the 10th house, you spend more time doing things or working than trying to work on your emotions. Jupiter, your emotional growth comes from learning to express your emotions. Now, Chiron being direct in the 10th house, your self-healing is in learning to express your emotions, not pushing them down and away. An aspect for these, Sun in the 10th house opposing Pluto in the 4th house. You have a sensible and tough attitude towards your emotions. So what I would pull from this chart is to set aside your emotional pride. By nurturing your emotions, you will transform and provide yourself with powerful emotional comfort. So remember, Sun in the 10th house is you are way too proud to show your emotions. You don't have time for it. But down here, Pluto is calling for transformation. And when we get that transformation, we can get a power or a passion. And that 4th house is emotional comfort. When we balance out this energy of not being too proud and we transform into providing ourselves with emotional comfort or understanding what our emotional comforts are, it also is balancing out the desire or letting go of repressed emotions, the desire to express them. The 11th house is very similar to traditionally it being the house of community. I call it where we find our feelings within our community. It also can be how others feel about us. Sun in the 11th house, you feel at best amongst a group. That is where you shine, is being with people. Moon in the 11th house, you have to connect emotionally with people within a group. Mercury, you feel as if you need mental connection rather than emotional. Venus in the 11th house. Your self-love reflects how others in a group feel about you. And we had a aspect earlier, an example of this. I think it was forming an angle with Mars. So here is when you are in a group and people are showing you a lot of love, then it's uplifting your love for yourself. If you're in a group and you don't feel like you belong, it's going to cause almost low self-esteem. So just be cautious with this Venus in the 11th house on understanding who you are, and that, you know, it's not always about how people feel about you. That will make you good, make yourself feel good. Mars in the 11th house, you feel as if you have to put in a lot of work in a group setting. You're the one putting a lot of energy in here. Similar to the Mars in the 7th house relationship, except you're doing it outside of just partnerships, maybe in a work environment. Jupiter in the 11th house, your biggest emotional growth comes from a community setting. And then Chiron here would be, you were possibly once wounded with how you felt like you belonged within a group. And so an area of this would be healing. So there could be some social awkward tendencies going on here, and just healing that. Finding your group, even if they are, you know, unique, finding your hobby, find your people. That's what Chiron is telling you. An aspect, Moon in the 11th house opposing Neptune in the 5th house. You are emotionally oversensitive and often fearful, causing anxiety. You may also have an idealized emotional strength that you wish to bring to your friends and community, but it doesn't always work out the way that you hope for, and in turn affects you emotionally. Okay, because Neptune is the planet of illusion, imagination, and dreaming. And so you dream that you have this strength emotionally to possibly help people within a community, and you want to do that emotionally because that's where your moon is, but it may not always work out, because now remember, it's ideal, maybe not practical, and it can, if it doesn't work out, then you'll be sad about it. If it does, then you're going to feel great. So bring in it's perfectly fine to have dreams and goals, but balance it with practicality, and then this opposition could be balanced. Planets in the 7th or the 12th house is the house we call hidden emotions, finding that common ground that's similar of house of secret sorrow, self-undoing, hiding things, being a private person. Planets in the 12th house, you are private about your emotions. So Sun is private, meaning that you may share them with loved ones, not strangers. When you get comfortable, then you will probably share your feelings with loved ones or close friends, so on. Moon here is saying you keep your feelings to yourself. This is different than the Sun, because most likely you are not going to share them with people at all. Moon in the 12th house is emotionally sensitive, not sharing emotions with others. You may use a different outlet or forms such as meditation, journaling, to express feelings outwardly, but probably not to others. Mercury in the 12th house, you have internal emotional thoughts, you keep them hidden. Venus in the 12th house, the value that you have for yourself is hidden or kept close to your heart. And Mars in the 12th house, you feel awkward to when you express aggression. What I often find with Mars in the 12th house is that these people do get angry. However, they feel an awkwardness toward it. They want to hide it. They may get angry in secret, or when they show aggression, they're almost embarrassed about it. Jupiter in the 12th house, your emotional wisdom comes from expressing or sharing your emotions. So learning not to hide them. 12th house here is directly saying that you are wounded in the area of hidden emotions. Maybe you were shamed or taught or told that sharing feelings and expressing yourself is not okay. So that would be an area of healing Chiron is calling for. An aspect here, Moon in the 12th house, where Venus in the 9th house, you feel as if there is difficulty achieving emotional satisfaction, but once you work on achieving emotional wisdom, on self-love, you will be able to share your emotions and no longer feel alone. Moon in the 12th house, you could feel as if you are alone. Nobody understands you emotionally, or this person is also hiding their feelings. So keep that in mind. They're not sharing them. So that in turn is causing them to feel as if they are alone. But this square is saying that once you become emotionally wise on how to love yourself, and that you will no longer feel alone, in the sense that even being by yourself, you are with someone, you're with yourself, okay? All right, in summary, what are the main things that we can pull from this lesson? First of all, the 12 houses all have different meanings. Once you have remembered them, most of the planets have similar definitions or meanings as they do traditionally. So once you've memorized the houses, you are able to interpret your chart better. The planets are influenced by the houses. So when they are in a house, it changes or influences, inspires how they are going to react. An aspect or another planet can benefit or cause conflict to the planet. So not only it being in a house, but how is it aspected to another planet? It may benefit it or cause conflict or stress. I didn't go over it too much in this lesson, but the zodiac signs also influence it. So it usually tells like how it's going to be done, and you can pull those keywords that I showed you at the beginning. Most importantly, continue exploring your chart and have fun with it. There are so many different ways to enjoy astrology. I do want to share one key thing about this. As a wellness astrologer, I try to practice what I preach. Throughout this lesson, I noticed lots of typos. Well, I have that Sun conjunct Saturn placement in my chart. I have some perfectionism things that I am trying to work on, that I continue to work on daily. And so by practicing what I preach, I kept going throughout this lesson, and I didn't let it hold me back. At some point, I wanted to just stop the video and do it over again, but I have done my best, and I hope that you all enjoy it. And this concludes our lesson in interpreting, or how to interpret your birth chart for emotional well-being. Please feel free to reach out to me on any of these platforms with any questions, or if you would like to work with me. I absolutely love teaching. And if you have looked at my chart throughout this, I gave you some samples, you'll know that I also love helping others. It's what I do. I am sending you all so much love, light, and emotional healing. Have a wonderful rest of your day.